All right. I read chapter one, and I feel like I have less notes now than I did with part zero. But here we go, part one of the Respondent series. And first thing that I noticed is the author uses this really immersive story approach, very descriptive, even to the point of graphic, on his experience in it wasn't a jail, it was like a psychiatric ward. And I have mixed feelings about this. Number one, it is definitely going to be more engaging to the reader. It's probably going to elicit some emotions from an ambivalent person, but I feel like it's written more to people who have been through the situation, and the problem with that is they're in the minority. So yeah, the people who've been through the situation will probably become vividly connected to, they will relate to the author, they will probably completely believe him. Ambivalent people who have never been through the system, I think they're going to be skeptical. It's just one side of a story, and the more descriptive and the better a storyteller you are, the more suspicion you're going to elicit. I'm not necessarily saying that people will think he's a liar. I'm just thinking that people will not, they're going to think, well, is this true? Did it happen this way? There's two sides to a story. I wonder what his ex thinks. I wonder what she would say. And so, I mean, it's a good way to keep people reading, but is it going to convince them that you're telling the truth? In my opinion, the answer is most definitely no. It doesn't matter though. This is just chapter one. Some other, information could come out later on, and it could very easily change my opinion. And if you remember the My Docket series, you'll probably recall that in parts one, two, three, four, five, I mean, I was relying on people just believing me too. Now, I could tell them at the time what happened in the end of my case, and that would probably help a lot of people believe me, knowing that my ex's parental rights were terminated. But still, um, just like with any of these situations, you're not going to really know what to think until you get waist deep in the story. And this is just chapter one. So I did notice that he contrasted his experience in the psych ward with, and according to him, just 8 hours before at his mansion, which gives me the perception that he is a wealthy individual of some sort. I still haven't looked him up, but I will, I promise, guys. He has an enormous estate. He talked about 4 decades of his life going into that house. And I'm assuming the reason why is because he's going to get to the point where his wife gets awarded sole, what do they call it? Sole possession? There's a name for it. We'll find out. Um, he talks about a DCFS intrusion with the police, which makes me think that the DCFS people are separate from the police. I think that's what we have here in Nevada, which is the Department of Child and Family Services. The only thing that confuses me is I don't think DCFS has officers. And later on in chapter one, he talks about the DCFS officers, handcuffs, and I just get this visual of police who work with DCFS. I've never heard of anything like that in Nevada. I don't think that this is a thing. They have caseworkers and experts on child protection, but I've never heard of DCFS here in Nevada having its own police force. So I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing something. Maybe I'll find out more as I get into further into the book. He talks about how he was handcuffed on allegations. Okay, so this is, I think, shocking to people, but this can happen. My understanding is that when police want to get a warrant or when they want to arrest someone, they need some kind of probable cause. And that doesn't necessarily mean they need some kind of convincing evidence of you. Can they do this based on allegations? My understanding is yes, they can. So I feel like if you were some kind of famous person or anything like that, it would be different. They would be like, okay, this person's famous, somebody's saying that this actor um, did these horrible things. We need to look more, beyond just allegations. But if you're a nobody in the eyes of the police, and I guess, a businessman who's rich might not really, maybe they're not a nobody to ordinary people, but to the police, I mean, it's not like it's just going to jump out at them that there's a motive to lie, especially when it's coming from his ex, which, by the way, hasn't been revealed yet. I can see this happening. It sounds believable to me that they could do this based on a mere allegation. He talks about how he answered the police slash DCFS officers' questions, quote, too honestly, unquote, and that he should have kept quiet because his words were misquoted and used against him. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an obviously. At the time, I don't know. See, when you're under arrest, obviously you don't want to, speak anymore. But before you're under arrest, it's not that clear. It's not. Um, when there were two police report situations in the My Docket series, and I do believe that both times I spoke to them. Now, I was never arrested, so that's different. But still, in hindsight, I think I would talk to them for sure for the suicide call, but the other call, maybe it would have been better if I remained silent. For this specific individual, I think it would have been better if he remained silent. It just, the vibe that I got from the search of his house and all of that, to me, that would have triggered, okay, I need to be quiet. And I didn't really go through that experience, in the My Docket series in my situation. He kept asking why he was being detained, didn't get any answers. I mean, they don't really care, in my opinion. I mean, they're processing you. So, I mean, if you're going to expend any energy, any resistance, it's going to be legally. It's going to be once you have access to the court. These workers, these policemen, these officers, these orderlies, these people are just workers. You're not going to get anywhere with them. Now, ordinary people don't know that. They've not been in the court system, and it's scary, and so they're going to try everything in their power to avoid it. You're not going to avoid it. You're just going to end up doing, things that make your situation worse. And that's exactly what this guy did, because one of the things that he mentioned is he was ordered to sign this clipboard. He says he was too incoherent and traumatized to really resist, and he signed something that he probably shouldn't have. But he hasn't talked about what was in there yet. So who knows? I think it's probably going to come up later when it shows up in court, and he's going to find out what he signed. I don't really find this very believable. I mean, I didn't sign anything, and I was pretty traumatized, and I was like 20, I don't know, 25 ish. I don't know. I mean, guys, don't sign stuff without reading it. And if it sounds weird, like it's got stuff in there that's not true, don't sign it. I just don't know why he did that. That is not something that I found. It just doesn't lend credibility to this guy as somebody who's a fighter. In fact, throughout most of chapter one, he portrays himself as this weak, kind, innocent, naive individual, and that isn't something that is going to help you get through one of these child custody disputes. It's just it doesn't look good, and it could even come off to some people as somebody who's trying to portray themselves as a victim, poor me, but they're really a manipulator. So it didn't really come across too well with me that that's the way he was portraying himself. If it's true, it's true. Okay, I get it, but not good. Yeah, more specifically, he would say things in chapter one like, "Who did this? Why is this happening?" And it's like, I mean, he didn't put two and two together. Why he didn't put two and two together, I don't know. Could it have been a sneak attack completely out of the dark? I don't know. That just sounds so hard to believe. I maybe in chapters 2, 3, and 4, my opinion will change, but at this point in time, it is bizarre because usually when there's problems in a relationship, they build up. It's not usually that everything's hunky dory and then all of a sudden you get sneak attack. A lot of people like to say that they are, but no, I mean, there's fighting, there's arguments, things aren't going well, there is signs, there's suspicions. It's just strange to just act like everything is going perfectly fine and then just completely out of the blue this happens to you. I mean, that should have been like on the top of the list as, oh my goodness, did my ex lie? Uh, I don't know. I have a problem with it. It's hard to believe, guys. Um, I guess the allegation, and he repeats it a few times, quote, "I'm sick of this shit. I'm gonna harm the children," unquote. And to me, it's like he's trying to say this was such a huge lie that it's seared into my brain permanently, as this offensive, like cancer almost. It was this phrase obviously has a very strong emotional imprint in this individual's mind. I do remember that my ex said I threatened to take her out, She didn't verbatim quote me, but that is something that I took with me too from my experience, and it gets brought up into my docket series several times. So, I mean, what are my thoughts? Chapter one is just a story. I don't have much to say beyond that because he has not entered the family court system yet. He's still sort of telling the story of his incarceration. He's showing the stark contrast of what he used to do in his mansion for his kids when he was rich and where he's now, which is in a psych ward in this terrible situation. I'm leaving out the abusive stuff because it's pretty graphic and it's not good for YouTube, but it's in there. And I guess I feel like it's trying to make people feel bad for him and and invoke an outrage, and it might do that later on in the book if it comes to the point where it is clear that she lied. Is that going to be something that pops up in this book? Who knows? I mean, for all we know, it is. There could be some definitive moment where evidence is produced and it's clear and obvious, or it could just be one guy's story with no proof, which is not good because that's the problem with these child custody disputes is people don't know who's telling the truth, and even judges have difficulty in sorting out the liars. Full circle back to the problem of not having cameras in there for people to form their own opinions. In this type of situation, a lot of people assume there's a liar, or even both are lying. People think family court, lies. They go hand in hand. People think family court, who's telling the truth? I don't know. And I hope this doesn't sound as flippant. I hope this doesn't upset people. Just keep in mind we're in chapter one. My opinion could very quickly change, especially when we start getting to the portions of the family court system where evidence is taken. Hopefully he goes into those details. If he doesn't go into those details, travesty for sure. But we'll see. I don't want to judge this guy since we don't know yet. Chapter one is literally chapter one. All right, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments below. Next week, I will give you guys chapter two review.